Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney. Thank you for, number one, downloading this episode. I greatly appreciate it. If you're a long-time listener, thank you. If this is your first time listening, you might be asking, well, why am I listening to this podcast? I don't know. You came by. Somebody must have prodded you, said, you should listen to that weird Tommy Maloney guy, that Cub fanatic, the host of that podcast, Blending the Family. Sorry, I was looking at our dog Otis. Hashtag our dog Otis Colorado. He's hanging out here in my home office. How are you? Are you doing good? Let me take a step back. So if this is your first time listening, again, hello, I'm Tommy Maloney. This podcast is about blending families, divorce, men's mental health. There are times where I will break down and just give it a lot of honesty. And this episode is definitely one of those. I'm trying to recall, I don't recall ever actually crying on a podcast episode. This might be the first. Kimberly Ewertz, she's an author, she's a writer. She has a newish book, let's say, out there in the world, and what it is called, man, I am having problems, Family Redefined, Childhood Reflections on the Impact of Divorce, and you can get that book at familyredefinedbook.com. That's familyredefinedbook.com. Excited to have Kimberly on this episode. Before I tell you what we talk about, because I have a few things I want to say. Recording this, what is today? December 6th. And for those of you that know or don't know, I live in northern Colorado, and we have yet to have any snow. This is so odd. This is, part of me is enjoying this. The other part of me is like, it would be nice to have some snow. I don't mind shoveling some snow. It's when it gets that heavy, wet snow that I hate. Yes, I use the word hate. But anyway, what else is going on? Like I said, I've got Otis in my office. Unfortunately, the poor guy couldn't go to the dog park today. My wife Ann needed the car all day, so bummer. Oh well. I know I didn't get my 10,000 steps in. I probably didn't even get 1,000 steps in. Let's see. Oop, I just passed the app that I need. Let's see. Oh, remarkably, 1,336 steps today. That's pathetic. Oh well. Anyway, so no dog park for my man Otis today. Not much else to report. Heading to Flagstaff, Arizona in the morning for some work, and we'll leave it at that. We'll just leave it at that. All right, let's talk about our guest, Kimberly Ewertz. Again, the name of the book is Family Redefined, and on this episode, not only you'll witness me crying. So this book, what Kimberly did was she has, I believe there were 10 stories of adults going through divorce. So some of it, the divorce happened many years ago. Some their parents recently went through divorce, but Kimberly even interviews her son for the book. So this conversation, I'm going to chalk up to one of the favorites, just because there's a lot of vulnerability, there's a lot of honesty between Kimberly and myself, and it's one of those episodes that will make you think about not only your own life, but as far as if you've experienced your parents going through divorce, and then you went through divorce, you'll really relate to a lot of the talk or a lot of this conversation. I'm trying to think, what else? There isn't really much to say. Again, I'm just looking over at poor Otis laying here. I should take a selfie. I'm going to take a selfie of us. Let's see if he'll let me. And I'll post this. Okay, so I'm really bad at this. There we go. There's Otis. All right. So, and I'm going to look at the camera. Looking at the camera. Oh, smiling. I'm trying to talk and smile at the same time. So let me take a look at this. Yep, there we go. All right, I will be posting that on in the show notes, and I'll post it on the Instagrams. I added another Instagram. I named it The Tommy Maloney. Let me go to that real quick. So I actually have 3 Instagram accounts. I have Blending Family, and then I have, hold on, I didn't mean to go there. Oh gosh. Hit X. Ooh, Tom Holland's going to be on Hot Ones. I love that show. Hot Ones, oh my gosh, love that show. Love. Sean Evans, he's my hero when it comes to people that can ask great questions. All right, so on Instagram we have Blending Family. I also have The Tommy Maloney. And then I have The Tommy Maloney Podcast. If you're not familiar with that podcast, I haven't done one of those in a long time. It was just me talking when I was in airports, and I should probably go back and do some of those. But anyway, so I'll post that on the old IG and put it in the show notes of Otis looking pathetic. Anyway, there you go. That's the end of this rambling. I've rambled so much. I am sorry. I've taken a lot of your time. Again, please subscribe to, or tell people to subscribe to the podcast. You know, I haven't mentioned in a long time. Leave a rating and review, please. Not to beg. I think I sounded like I was begging, but leave a rating and review. Let me know what episodes you've enjoyed. Let me know if there's somebody out there that you might feel would be a great guest on the podcast and can have a conversation doing that. Again, Kimberly Ewertz. The book is Family Redefined, Childhood Reflections on the Impact of Divorce. Otis is now standing up. He's looking at me like he's getting ready to bark. I think he's going to bark. Wait for it. Wait for it. You're not going to bark? Okay. All right. There we go. I've talked way too much. So here we go. As Terry Crews would say, your success, say it with me, is my success. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Blending the Family. We're definitely going to talk about your new book, or newish book, I should say, Family Redefined. But if it's okay with you, I want to start off with some hard-hitting questions first. Is that okay?
Sure, fire away.
All right.
Thank you
So,
so much for inviting me on your show. I really appreciate it.
oh, no worries, Kimberly. So your first hard-hitting question is, what kind of dogs are Murphy and Charlie?
Ooh, that's a toughie. No, they're both rescues. So the best guess is they're mixed terriers. The agency that we got them from have no idea. If they find them, like Charlie was found on the roadside, literally. So they have no clue. And Murphy was handed over by his previous family, who apparently didn't treat him well. So,
Aw.
but he made his way into our home, and we're very happy he did.
Well, as we've had this conversation, I'm such a huge dog lover, and obviously you are too. So the next hard-hitting question is, what did you learn about the world of roller derby?
did I learn about bizarre thing. My husband is a video producer, uh, and he and his friend did an independent production about the world of roller derby. So I know a little bit about it. How much do you want to know?
Well, I mean, the interesting facts are, there's what is it? There's 10 players, two
Right,
teams. I mean,
right.
I don't understand the scoring. How do they score? How do they know who? This isn't one of those. We're giving kids ribbons just for showing up. I mean, who are the winners, or how do you know who the winners are in roller derby?
I think it's based on how many times they go around the track and how many people they take down while doing that.
Oh, maybe I should get into that
It's
sport.
a great sport to release your aggressions.
That's what I was thinking too. I mean, the way of our world, and hopefully soon we'll be coming to whatever normalcy means and what that looks like. Along that topic, I mean, you've been a freelance writer for many
Yes.
years, and the big buzzwords right now are the Great Resignation, where people are leaving their jobs, either trying to find something else or starting something new, something that they've uh, thought about. As somebody who's been in the world of freelance, how did you start? Because a lot of our listeners are actually business owners. How did you start in the world of freelance, and how do you maintain being a freelance writer?
Okay. Well, I actually got fired from a full time job. And when I went to, and I was taking night classes at the community college at the time that, I was let go from a banking position. The company had, or the banks had merged with another one, and they were, downsizing a lot of the departments. And I was one of the people who was downsized. So, when I went to unemployment, I explained, I was taking night classes, and they said, well, did you know that going to college when you're out of work is trying to better yourself? So you can go full time to school and still collect unemployment. So I wasn't able to go to school right out of high school. I married my first husband, and he was completely against that. So this was my opportunity to jump in with both feet and be a full time student and still make enough to kind of squeak by. And I found I was able then to take journalism class because it was only offered during the day, and that's where the love of journalism found me. I always enjoyed writing and putting my thoughts down on paper, but the opportunity to write about other people and tell their stories and highlight the people you might not, find out about if journalists didn't kind of shine the light on them. So that's what, that was my jumping off point. And then I just started working for the local newspapers as a freelance writer, and I've been doing that ever since. I have to be honest, though, it got extremely hard during COVID because a lot of publications were no longer able to afford freelancers. So it's starting to get better now, but it's not something I can say I honestly could make a living at on my own. My husband, of course, works, so I'm given that freedom to not have to bring in a certain amount, to meet every month's debts. So I'm lucky and grateful for that. But I've stuck with the journalism all this time. That was back in 1990 when I went to school. So I've been doing it ever since then. I love it.
Well, is was it it's South Valley? Is that one of the publications you consistently write
South
for?
Valley Magazine was one of the publications. I used to do a lot of freelance profile articles and writing about events in the community. It was kind of like it's their lifestyle magazine, and it's a very good publication, and it still exists. But they were on a shoestring budget. So when COVID hit, it was down to like the editor who was covering all the stories. He goes, "I can't afford to have you do anything anymore." So that hurt, because I enjoyed that so much.
Well, and being part of the
Yes.
community, that's always rewarding there within itself. I mean, I look back at my 10-year radio career, and I loved small market radio because you were so embedded with the community, and going to local events and just sharing events with your listeners. So it's hard right now, with, like you were saying, a lot of publications have gone by the wayside, and it's even pre-COVID,
Right.
because more of us can just get it on our phones.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope newspapers, you know, beat all the rumors and they continue to exist because I think there's something special about a small town newspaper. You're reading about people it's your home. Um, You don't get that in, the worldwide news, which is equally important, but there's something special when it resonates with you because it's somebody, or an organization that, you're like, oh, I had no idea we had that. Let's contribute to that. It's a valuable resource for communities, and I hope they find a way to continue. Ours has, believe it or not. It's amazing that they're still making the paper. So I'm very proud of them for doing that.
Well, again, it really is so important, to know what's going on within your community, because especially when it comes to voting and you know things of that nature, and taking a stand, and again, being part of the community. And it's something that I've always treasured, just because growing up in the burbs of Chicago, we had Chicago Tribune, we had the Daily, we had the Chicago Sun Times, and uh, as memory it pops in my head, some of the memories of my great grandfather sitting at the kitchen table doing the crossword
Yeah,
puzzle, or my grandmother and I sitting there reading the comics, or
exactly.
even I will take it one step further. When I was a small lad, I requested that my Christmas gifts be wrapped in the Sunday comics,
Oh,
because the Sunday comics were in color, and I've always loved that. I mean, plus you save money with wrapping
that's true.
paper.
No, I remember sitting on my dad's lap and he would read the St. Louis. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and he would read the St. Louis Dispatch, the cartoons to me. And as I got older, we would read them together. And that's a memory that I'll never forget. And yeah, it's a great connection to your community, and I think it's an important one.
Well, let's get into your book, Kimberly, Family Redefined. So you were talking earlier, former husband. So obviously, we're going to be talking about divorce
Hmm.
recovery,
Yes.
and there's some there's 10 stories in the
10
book. Is
chapters,
that
that's
right?
right. 10 chapters, 9 chapters, or the reflections of childhood divorce from adults. So it's adult children of divorce looking back on that time in their lives, but we also, you know go all the way through their lives into, up until the time that I was interviewing them. So it lets the reader, ideally, divorced parents or parents who are thinking about divorce, understand impact that divorce has on their children. And this isn't a preachy book. It's just true stories of adults who have gone through it when they were children, looking back on that time and kind of saying, if my parents maybe had done this or my parents didn't do this, it may have helped. So it's kind of just learning from others who have gone through this path what they can do now for their children to help them through it in a more healthy way. It's how the parent.
How
I'm
did you find
sorry.
how did you find the people for your book?
I just started telling everybody I knew. Thanks to my journalism, I'm in contact with a lot of people, and I would just start telling a bit anyone who would listen what my idea was for the book, and everyone I talked to was always so supportive. They all said that needs to be out there. That's a good resource, and I said I think so too. So simply through word of mouth, they would, oh, I know so and so, and I'll see if they want to contribute. And then you talk to that person, and then they know, one or two people. And so it was just from one person to the next to the next. So they're not all local. There's people all throughout the United States that contributed. And I can never thank them enough for all, trusting me to tell their stories.
So which story was probably the most impactful on you?
I would have to just say, personally, it was the very first one. It's Lisa. She's the first chapter in the book because she was my first interview. And if it had not been for her, and I get emotional when I talk about the book and the people, uh, because we really connected. And by the time the interview was over, we were both in tears. And she told me how much it was, how meaningful it was to have the opportunity to kind of go through that journey again, and see what she's learned from it and where she is right now and how she plans to move forward in her life. So the day I left her house, I literally said, as corny as it sounds, I said a prayer and I said thank you, because I feel like I'm on the right path. This is something that needs to be out there and available for children, and as well as the parents of a divorce. So that was my she was my inspiration, really.
What did Lisa learn from talking to you about her going through her parents' divorce?
Well, she's an example of a child who has one parent who could not be more supportive. Her mother was, as she calls her in the book, her touchstone. She's the reason she's alive today. She credits her with that. And then on the other hand, she had her father, who was the complete opposite. So she was dealing with two parents in totally different ways. One trying to get her through this experience, the healthiest she could be, or the other one for a while abandoned her, and then when he did allow her back into his life, he just chastised her and made her feel like she was never worthy of anything. Um, she developed an eating disorder early on in her. I mean, she was 6 when they divorced, and she had already developed an eating disorder by that time because of her father's treatment of her. So she learned later in life, um, to not let those kind of people, the negative people, the ones that try to pull you down and bring you down, control you, because for so long she did. She admits that in her relationships, her personal relationships, she would look for somebody who she knew subconsciously she would never live up to their expectations, like like her relationship with her father. So finally she's come to terms with that, and she says, you know, basically screwing them, you know, I'm going to live my life my way, and I'm going to be me, and that'll be enough. So it was a hard lesson. It was hard the way she had to learn it, but she's all the, stronger for it. And she still has this great connection with her mother and her stepfather and her stepbrother. So she's got a great support system. That was one of the resounding facts that came through on all the stories was how important to have a support system is for these children. And ideally, it's great if it's the parents, but a lot of times the parents aren't in. You're in such an emotional state when you go through this life changing event that you can't. I know from personal experience, you can't always be there for them the way they need you. So sometimes it's a in the one chapter it's a youth pastor who really made a difference for one of the young men who was in his teens when his parents divorced. Other times it's a friend of the family, or but there's always, and sometimes it's therapists make a huge difference, but they have to have someone to help them carry this burden. So support is huge.
So when, I'm going to take a step back. When you were going through your divorce, who was your support system? Who was your circle of influence?
My husband of today, my second husband, who was my friend back then, and of course grew to be more than just a friend. He was always the person I turned to, always. Without him, couldn't have done it.
I can feel that,
Yeah.
he's really impact you,
Oh,
in a positive
and
way.
he was there for my son, not as trying to step in and be a dad. He was just his friend, just somebody that he felt comfortable with, somebody who liked to do things with him, enjoyed, activities with him, something my son never experienced with his own, uh, paternal father, biological father. So that made a huge
Um,
impact in my son's life and continues to.
your husband's name is Steve,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So how did Steve know to not be that type of, I guess, stepdad, so to speak, where it was his way or the highway? How did Steve know to treat your son, like you were saying, more like a friend than a
Right.
parent? And in my view, there's nothing. I commend him on
Yeah.
that.
So do I. um Honestly, it's who he is. I think he was just being him. Um, he knew we were going through, my son and I were going through a really difficult time. And I think he's just that type of person that whenever he sees someone who needs help, he tries to be there for them in whatever way they need. So he just tried to be a solid presence in both our lives. And yeah, I can't imagine where we would be today without him. That's the that's
What
the truth.
what made Steve, so special as far as with your son? What kind of things, you were saying that he would do things with your son. What kind of things were those? What kind of
Yeah,
events?
two popped to mind immediately. This is back in 1990 when I divorced, a long time ago. um, and I don't know if your listeners are familiar with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it was very.
Hello, Vanilla Ice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Go
go,
ninja,
yeah,
go ninja, go. Go ninja, go ninja, go. Oh
exactly.
yeah.
Yes. So my son was a huge fan of the cartoon show, right? And the first Valentine's Day that Steve and I were to, officially together, he invited us to go see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, all three of us. We'd go together as a family. And shoot, you keep making me cry. Ah,
I'm
no, these
sorry.
are happy, happy tears because it was just, he knew Tony would like that, you know? And even though it's Valentine's Day and we're kind of a new couple, he included my son in that. And I mean, that's pretty stellar in my book. And then for Easter that same year, I got Tony the turtles play action play set. So Steve sat on the floor with him and they put it together while I made Easter dinner. Tried to make a meatloaf and shape it in the shape of a bunny. It didn't turn out too good, but it tasted good. So
And that's all that
yeah,
matters, right,
yeah.
Kimberly? Yeah,
So those are the two
yeah.
that popped to mind, and that was in the very beginning of our relationship. And he's just been continued to provide that kind of support and camaraderie with my son all the way through. It's been Tony's 42 now. So he was 10 when all of this began. So that's over 30 years.
And what's the relationship like even to today after these years with Tony and Steve?
Well, for right now, our son has moved back home, and they work together. He does freelance work for Steve in the video production field, and they work on personal projects. And he has something that just came up recently as of last night. And Steve's like, "Well, if you want me to help you, just let me know what you want me to do." He's
It sounds like Steve subconsciously knew that this was going to be a lifelong friendship versus, again, parent child. And in your situation, Kimberly, how wonderful it's worked out. How wonderful, that relationship has
I
blossomed.
am truly blessed, and I thank God every day for it. I am, for putting Steve in our lives, because it changed everything. Having his support, and once I knew somebody like him saw something in me that was good after years of, physical and mental abuse from my ex-husband, it was like, that's my, I don't know if you can hear it, but that's my dog. I'm sorry. He's
Which
he's
one?
wanting to come out of the bedroom. Um, to have somebody, view you as a good person, it it made me take a look at myself in a new light and changed everything. So
How did you
I felt worthy. I felt
change?
worthy. My
Ah,
ex-husband made me feel like nothing, like a something to step on and tear down, in every way you could. And he was very good at it. He did that to my son as well. And I'm ashamed that I let it go for 10 years. But I guess I just wasn't strong enough until I met someone I admired. And Steve reminded me of my dad, who I lost when I was 17. He was kind and, thought of others first. And when somebody like that sees you in, good light, you start to see yourself that way, and you stop listening to all the negativity and realize that there's more to you than what this person you're married to has been telling you. So it gave me the strength to stand up against him and tell him, we're done. We have to end this. This is just damaging, all of us. So we went out, my son and I.
well, it's hard to have that negative self-talk because it really can
Oh,
control you. It can really
yeah,
direct you. And when you're bombarded with that, you accept
you
it.
do.
And
That's
unfortunately,
it exactly. You
yeah.
accept it. And I was 15 when I met Tony's father. So, and then 2 years later, I lost my dad. So I think, all the circumstances led to my relationship with him staying the way it was, because I felt lost.
What is it that you're talking about how Steve helped you? What do you think you've helped Steve in your marriage?
He tells me I've helped him a lot. I've always supported him. He's always been such a talent when it comes to video production and creating things and editing. You know, he worked for a nonprofit for several years, and he would make those videos that you watch and you just want to open your wallet and give everything you have because they were so moving and so touching. And that's just a reflection of him, you know, how he can see that in situations and bring it to life. Um, and when he wanted to move to California, you know, we all we were born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. So when situation at his work didn't work out as well as it should have, he decided, and I was right there with him. I'm like, you need to, you know, you have the kind of talent that you, there's lots of jobs available in California for people who do video production. So it's time for us to go there. So we didn't think twice about it. He started, you know, we started submitting resume after resume to all these video production companies, and he was hired. And so we, within 2 weeks time, we packed up and moved out here, and we've never been sorry. So he says that all the support that I've provided him throughout the years has made a huge difference in his life. So I hope that's true. I believe it is.
Uh, well, you definitely should. You definitely should believe that. So, what other stories do you want to talk about that were are in the book Family Redefined?
Oh, each one is special in its own right. There's actually two chapters. One is called Katniss, and it's a reference to the character in the Hunger Games, the main character. And she purposely,
Yeah, not
yeah,
yeah. Sorry,
she
yeah.
purposely chose that name to represent her because she feels like the journey that she and her brother both went on regarding not only their parents' divorce, but just the treatment that they both received. They weren't only children of divorce; they're children of abuse and neglect. And unfortunately, too many times that happens to children of divorce. They're in those kind of home environments. But theirs was to the extreme. To and she was the older of the two, so she, you know, she became took on the role of caregiver, and she was always there for her brother. So she was her brother's support system, and she honestly didn't have a support system of her own. She made it through on her own will. Do you want me to? I'll be right back. I'll let him out, and then he'll stop.
It's all good. We can edit that. I love dogs. I so love dogs.
Okay, sorry.
It's all good.
So Katniss definitely stands out, as does her brother Chris's chapter. Um, they're both today, you know, they're very both they're very both they're both very successful in their careers, both entrepreneurs. They're both married and have children, and they they not only survived, they thrived even under the circumstances they had to deal with throughout their childhood. So they're
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that the both of them are entrepreneurs. I was just listening to, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to see how fast I can pull it up. Um, Guy Raz's podcast, "How I Built This." He just, or I shouldn't say just, I was just listening to um, an episode from the, let's see, library of the creator of Audible,
oh, okay.
and he was talking about how a lot of entrepreneurs go through some type of tragedy, and in his case was loss of his dad, and he was very close to his dad. And it's just interesting that entrepreneurs have that type of I guess screw you attitude where it's like I'm gonna prove you wrong.
Yeah,
And it sounds like these two had that mindset of sure we went through hell and
but we made
back,
it.
but we made it and we're gonna prove
Yep,
you wrong on whatever.
exactly. It's horrible to say that, that I mean, it's wonderful that something so positive can come out of something so negative. And their childhood was devastatingly bad, but they, managed to overcome it. And to me, they're heroes. They're heroes in my mind.
Don Katz was the creator of
Okay.
Audible. Um, so you also have a chapter that your son wrote, correct?
Yes, that chapter is chapter 9. It's entitled Andy because everyone in the book is under a fictional name to keep their anonymity. And my son said, I think we should do that with, not change the format for my chapter. So I wrote it just like all the others. He answered all the same questions that all the other people answered that have contributed to the book.
What were some of the questions, Kimberly?
Oh, good question. I had about 25 of them, and it would start out with, what age were you when you found out your parents were either separating or divorcing? How did they let you know? Or did they let you know? Unfortunately, some kids, they, it's in the book, Mickey, he, his father was loading up his car with boxes and luggage and just drove off, and he looks to his mom and says, what's going on, and she doesn't give him any answers. And from that day on, his dad didn't live in the house with them, so he was never given that explanation. Neither parent thought to sit him down and tell him, this is what's going to happen now. So all parents should realize how important that is. Children need to hear it from them both. Um, so it goes from there. It starts with when you found out. Do you have siblings, and were they a help to you throughout this time? My son is an only child, so he had no one to help him. And through,
It's
yeah,
hard. It definitely I learned that myself as an only
okay,
child is that for me, even when I was going through my own divorce, I didn't tell anybody. I mean, I was in actually I was in your neck of the woods in
okay,
California when I was going through mine, and I was um, at this job site, and somebody brought up something about marriage, and I wasn't even listening. I was focused on a task, and they're like, "Tommy, you can talk about marriage." And I turned around, showed them my left hand because I didn't have a wedding
right,
ring on, and they were like, "What? When did this happen?" And I'm like, I'm not here to bring my personal, as I like to call it, my little red wagon. And my little red wagon is all of our
yeah,
stuff. And I tell people I didn't bring my little red wagon into work. So they were shocked. And again, I feel, I'm no psychiatrist, psychologist, but I feel that for me personally, it was because I was an only child, and that I really didn't have a an outlet to say, I'm grieving, I'm
right,
hurting. It was just essentially me, myself, and I, just like
yeah,
Tony. So it's hard when you don't know who you can trust, and especially when with adults. I mean, here's your parents, which you hopefully love unconditionally, but when something like that happens, it's like, all right, You're not telling me what's going on. So who can I trust?
Well, yeah, when a family falls apart due to separation or divorce, it's, destroys a child's confidence because that is their role model of what a relationship is, what a family is. And that's something that Chris, the younger brother of Katniss, said in his chapter was that, I didn't know what family meant anymore. I didn't know what love stood, what that stood for. It was all just gone because the people that should have provided him examples of that and, been role models for him had let him down. So, and then, as adults, you make choices in relationships that aren't healthy because of your skewed vision of what a relationship really is. Or sometimes you're looking for them to meet these needs that you have because of what happened to you when you were younger, and they have their own needs as well, and that usually never works out so well.
Right. So going back to Tony, aka Andy, um, again, what were like a couple of the questions, and to piggyback on that, what surprises did you get from reading his answers or hearing his answers?
um, well, I can definitely answer that one right away. What surprises? I thought I understood what my son had gone through, um, but here we go again.
It's
But was
okay.
what was very revealing in his answers were the fact that as much as I wanted to help him, I knew I was in such an emotional state that I felt I couldn't be of use to him. I wasn't at my best, so how could I help him? So I, in a sense, farmed him out to therapists. There was one in the school, and then I found one after school to take him to group counseling. And I should have realized at the time when the counselors are telling me that he doesn't participate, he doesn't open up, he doesn't share his feelings. At one point, he was actually hiding under the table, waiting, looking at the doorway, waiting to see me walk in before he would even come out into the room. I didn't know that. I didn't know that what he most needed during that time was just to be able to come to us, his mom and his dad, even if we weren't 100%. He needed that connection with us to know that it still existed. And I failed him in that. And I'm forever sorry for that. He explained how he would go down into we had a basement in the house in St. Louis, and he would go down there and kind of hide behind the water heater and take the dog with him, and he would cry. And he said his tears were caught by her fur. He'd use Chi Chi was the dog. He'd use Chi Chi's fur to dry his tears. I had no idea he had experienced that. So that was heartbreaking. But it just emphasized all the more how important I think this book is for parents to realize what their child is going through, and try and always be there for them, even if you feel like you can't. You've got to. You've got to try. They have to know that you're there. They have to have that security that that isn't changing because everything else around them is. So they've got to have some sort of anchor to hold on to. And we have to be that anchor. I hope that answers your question.
I'm just trying to compose myself too. So this is a first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's Oh, it's all good. Because I start thinking about, oh gosh, whew, because I started thinking about um, the first Christmas, and I was too embarrassed, and part of it was, as a husband, as a man, as a dad, you feel like you've failed epically.
Right.
And that first Christmas, I just couldn't face my son. I had to, as I jokingly say, I ran to mommy
Oh,
and spent that first Christmas. I was grateful because I wasn't alone, because I know my battles with depression. I know I would have been a nutcase. So uh, I guess I have to give myself a little bit of credit, saying I recognized that I needed to you know be somewhere around
right.
people, and
You
so
provided your own support by going to your mom.
yeah, yeah. And I also learned that I like cranberries in salad, but that's another session,
Okay.
Um, but it goes back to gosh, it does really go back to being open and honest with your kids and having that tough conversation. Why mommy's not in the house anymore, daddy's not in the house
Yeah.
anymore, and so
They're never going to truly
I
comprehend, the complexity of what a divorce is or why it happens, but you have to give them some information, enough for them to kind of first and foremost realize and stress to them always that it's not their fault. Again and
right.
again,
Oh, that is so
the
key.
therapists that I spoke to and that are their comments and advice is all throughout the book, and they just reiterate that over and over again. You can never tell them enough that it's not their fault.
So what other, besides that, besides letting the kids know it's not their fault, anything else come to mind, Kimberly, of what we, well, let's just say it this way. If there are, couples that are going to be going through that
Hmm.
process, and I think number one, you nailed it on the head, is having that tough conversation. Both parents having that conversation with their children, letting them know what's going on. Number two is definitely letting them know it's not their fault. This is an mommy daddy
Right.
issue. This is an adult issue.
Right.
Anything else that comes to mind to help other parents, other audience members?
Well, a parent is, the absolute best, uh, has the best perception of how their child is doing and feeling, because you can see it in their behavior. um, like one of the therapists said, if you notice that your children are playing with either their cars or their dolls or whatever their play toys are, and all of a sudden they're like having fights, they're having crashes, they're getting a bit violent with their toys, it's just their way of trying to express what's inside them. They have all this confusion and misunderstandings, and they don't know, they may be too young to verbalize it. So they use what's at their, um, what's in their world to kind of express it. So we have to be all the more aware of how our children are acting, and it's important to let, if they're school age and then they're going to school, not not having school at home, but if they're going to school, to notify their teachers and let them know, what the situation is at home, and ask for them to please let as the parent know, if there's unusual behavior by the child, or if their grades are slipping, or their concentration is just not where it used to be, because these are all signs that they need help and they need support. And again, it's great if the parent can be that one, but if not, then it's okay to look for outside help. But then you have to be aware, as I was not, that not all children are going to respond to therapy. Some will, and some is very helpful, but you don't know until you try. So, again, listen to what the therapists feel, your child needs, as well as what your child is showing you through how they're acting. And they will act out, you know. My son would tell me he wasn't going to go to a school. He turned into this, rebellious little boy. And before that, he was kind and sweet and good, and all of a sudden he just transformed. And again, as parents, we're in such an emotional state that we don't always comprehend it, but we have to try. We have to try to look at what they're telling us through their actions and pick up on that and try and get them the help they need.
Yeah, I like the part where you said to let the teachers
Hmm.
know as
Yeah,
well,
that all the professionals said that
because
that's important.
yeah, because they're, I mean, they're with our children. They can observe. They can, you know, I mean, I remember, one of the teachers at my son's school when he was first grade, and luckily we had a close knit neighborhood. We lived in
Yeah.
cul-de-sac, and one of the families were friends with the first grade teacher, and she gave her a heads up, and it really helped. I mean, it really helped.
Yeah.
So that's that's
Oh,
important. I
very
mean, it really
important.
is.
Yeah. They're your eyes and ears when you're not with them. So they can let you know how they're acting, how they're behaving, how they seem, you know.
So anything else that you learned from Tony's chapter?
Oh, those were the biggest ones. The realization that he just wanted and needed me. I shouldn't have tried to find all these other resources. The resource that he needed most was just knowing mom was there. Dad had never been there before, really. So now here I am, sending him out to all these other places, and he needed me more than ever. So that was the biggest revelation. It's the one that sticks with me and will always stick with me.
He designed the cover,
He
right?
did. He's very talented. He's always been very artistic. So yeah, he was my collaborator in this book. Um, he read every chapter, all the numerous versions of the chapters, so many countless times, and gave great input. And then when it came to, I work with my publisher, and I said, "My son's really good, artistically." I said, "Can he design the cover?" And she said, "Yeah, go for it." And so he did, and I just love it. I mean, it's the perfect cover for this book. I think a lot of it conveys the message of what children of divorce are going through. With the keys, mom's house and dad's place. The backpack, the background is a backpack because they're always transitioning. Oh, that was something very important that the therapists all agreed upon, is that when they're living in two different home environments, let them bring things from the one home to the other, especially photographs of the other parent. Let them have that there in their new room, because it just helps make that transition from one home to the other that much easier, because that whole back and forth is so hard on them. So anything you can do, like involve them in creating the new room, let them have a say in what kind of, sheets or bedspread they want, or what color would you like your walls, or, let's paint a bookshelf, what color would you like that? it gives them a voice and a say in a circumstance where they're usually not even included. They're just told what to do. So they stress the professionals stress that a great deal, and I found that very,
Yeah,
very important.
I learned that through a friend of mine when when I was going through my divorce, and that was the biggest piece of advice he gave me was, when you and your son go furniture
Mhm.
shopping, make sure he's part of that
Yeah,
process. And I'm like, oh,
good for
and
him.
it I still have it. We still he's going to be 19, and we still have that. And I'm pretty happy to say that, he did have, a say in what he
Yeah.
wanted in his room when after my divorce, he and I had a townhome
Okay.
exactly a mile from his mom's
Okay.
house. And so I wholeheartedly loved that little piece of advice because I didn't think about it. I thought, now just go to the
Right.
furniture
Yeah, I
store
mean,
and
you
get
you really
whatever.
don't. You don't think about it when you're so busy worrying about what do they need and make sure they have everything, and it never like dawns on you like, why don't we ask the child? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let them feel included, because the divorce itself is something they're not really included in. They're told about it, they're living the aftermath of it, but they're not asked their opinion of it.
Well, the best part about picking the furniture for my son Connor was the salesman. So when uh, at the furniture store they had a stuffed animal on top of the bed, my son goes, "Does a stuffed animal come with the bed?" And I look at the salesman. I go, "Yeah." "Does a stuffed animal come with the bed?" He goes, "No." And I'm like, "Crap! I got to buy the stuffed animal." And we still have. Not only do we still have the stuffed animal, that stuffed animal is
On
still
that
on his bed.
bed.
Yes.
See, it's a symbol for your son that he had to say, I think. I'm not a psychologist, but that's what it says to me. That's an
Yeah.
important,
And
yeah, that's an important thing in
it
his life.
well, and I'm gonna also say it was important for me because it's a happy memory. It's a good
Yes,
memory that,
yes.
spending that day and, you know, knowing that, when that furniture came, it was coming for
Mm,
him in his room, that he could do whatever he wanted. So, I mean, even some of the towels
right.
we
Yeah,
have he picked out the shower
that's
curtain.
awesome.
And
You did it
yeah,
100% right. And it's a simple
well,
thing, to do, but I don't think parents think about it. So, hope this
no,
is great that
no,
they know
but
this, how important it is and how important it is and continues to be to your son.
it's like you were saying too, Kimberly, you're in an emotional state.
Yeah.
And uh, are you thinking, gosh, what furniture should I be picking out for my children?
No.
No, it's like we got to find
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah, you're in desperation mode. Yeah.
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 Well, Kimberly, I am so honored. This was a lot of
I'm
fun.
sorry I made you cry.
um no, no, hey, if any buddy remembers Dick Vermeil, the former coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, he was notorious for crying. I'm okay with it. I spent one of my favorite shows that I watch. I bookend my Sundays, and my Sundays start with watching CBS's Sunday Morning,
Mhm.
and then the evening is CBS's 60 Minutes. But recently they had an episode of um, they were talking about the newest drug and study to help
Oh.
PTSD, which is a version of
Oh,
ecstasy.
wow.
And one of the stories they piggybacked on was a lady found a military uniform, and she traced where that uniform belonged to, and unfortunately, the young man had uh, committed suicide. So I'm sitting there bawling my eyes
Yeah.
out. Um, and luckily nobody was around, but it's okay, Kimberly. I I'm in my home office, and there are times where I'll be just losing it, but in a
In a
good
good
way.
way. And it's good to release,
Yeah.
your emotions.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And, and and that's the thing. I always stress, even to the men listening, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Go out
And
and
let your
just
child see that. Yeah,
yeah.
let them know it's okay.
Oh my gosh. I was um so my son's in college, freshman in college, and his last I don't know, it was his last hockey game, or it was the last tournament. Anyway, knowing that that was the last game. Oh my
Oh.
gosh. I'm on the ice with him, just crying, and I'm gonna start doing it again. Anyway, Kimberly, tell listeners how they can get hold of the book and any other information you want to give out before I start crying again.
Okay, sure. Well, there is a website for the book. It's Family Redefined Book. So familyredefinedbook.com. And you can go there. There's a contact section where if you have any questions for me or just want to correspond with me, I'm happy to happy to do that. I encourage it. And there's, of course, two links. One takes you directly to Little Creek Press, which is the publisher of the book, and you can purchase a copy of the book right there. Or you click on the link to Amazon, and of course, you can purchase the book there. Right now, starting today, I believe the ebook is on sale for $5.99. So, and then I have Family Redefined Facebook page, and I'm on Facebook under Kimberly Ewertz, and I'm on Instagram hashtag Family Redefined Book. So you can find me all over the place.
Is the Facebook group a closed
No,
book?
it's open.
Closed book. Closed.
It is open to anyone.
Awesome. All right, Kimberly, are you ready for your last question? And I don't know. One of us might
Oh
cry. I
boy.
don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm guessing one of us will probably cry.
Okay.
So, Kimberly, if you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked that I didn't ask you? If you could step into my shoes, what would you have asked that I did not ask? And I'm speaking to a journalist, so this is gonna be
If
brutal.
okay, no, it's easy. If I were you, I probably would have because I've been asked this before, and it's a good question. um, Not that your questions weren't good; they were all very good. Thank you, Tommy. Uh,
You're welcome.
but a lot of people have, when they find out my son is 42 and he was 10 when the divorce happened. Why did you take so long to write the book? And it's a valid question, and my answer has taken me time to figure it out, just like it took me time to write the book. Is I always wanted to put a resource out there for children of divorce as well as for their parents to help those children. I just didn't know the best way to do it. I didn't know what resource that should be. And it took the years of in journalism and realizing that that's kind of, God gave me that talent to be able to tell other people's stories. So why don't I use that to tell the stories of adult children of divorce? And so that's where the idea came from, and that was over 5 years ago. And it did take 5 years to make the book, with the research and just yeah, everything that it took to bring it about. Um, but I feel that it took the time that was needed to make the resource that it is what it is today, and I feel it's a valuable resource for those parents and will only benefit them and their children. So even though it took me a long time, I am proud of it, very proud of it. And I have my son to
Did
thank for helping me make it a reality.
did you have to go through some of a healing process when you're doing putting the book together?
every step of the way. Yeah, I think divorce is something that stays with you no matter how far down the line it's been. It's a part of your life that, like you explained, you feel ashamed when you're going through it, and then you're a complete and total mess emotionally. So how do how does that not stick with you? But we learn from it, right? We learn from the difficult times, and it makes us stronger. And um, I'm even now trying to, in my community, working with a counseling center, we're trying to establish in the local schools a support group for children of divorce. So we're in the midst of doing that right now, because this has become, the book was my passion project, and I don't want to stop there. I want to keep providing resources for not only the adult, the parents of divorce. I want to provide a resource for the children, especially when they're going through it. I just feel that this will be crucial. Sorry, I
Well,
went on and on
Kimberly,
there.
oh, you're good. Oh, no, no. So, Kimberly, I want to say once again, thank you so much for your time. Love the book, love the cover.
Me too.
You can tell. Um, I'm just gonna say his real name,
Yeah,
Tony. He's got a great mom,
he's a
and
great son.
so happy for you and
Thank
Stephen.
you. We're happy. Yeah, we're happy too. Thank you so much, Tommy. This was a real pleasure to speak with you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on your amazing show.